I hope I can start recording again. So this is the travel journal box that I made, and the idea was to paper engineer an old book, take out the pages, and it was all about travel, and the idea is just for it to sit beside the bed and to keep little keepsakes. There's a photograph there, an old photograph. Inside I looked at Tom, can't remember his name now, somebody or other that does this, A Firmament by Tom Phillips, and I picked out words that are related to travel, and I tried to paint in a bit of a map there. Didn't come out brilliant, but it's something I could explore later. I also made some little journals to go inside that can be put in the handbag or in your travel pack. I tried to do a Midori style, but it went wrong because I realised that really you need a thick, something like leather or a leather type of thing to do that. Anyway, I did look at an idea of doing a junk journal, travel junk journal. So, and I did some sketches for that, some thumbnail prints for that, which I will look at again later. I didn't actually have time to do one, but that's my travel journal box. But there's some thumbnail sketches anyway. And inside the travel journal box, I've got all my paper engineering bits, a boat, a couple of aeroplanes to go with it. I did do a flower, which is completely random because I just wanted to have a go at it. Not something I'd particularly do. It's too big to go into a junk journal anyway. Might sit nice as an ornament, but it's not my kind of thing. However, it was quite therapeutic doing it. And then I looked at grunging fabric. I tried using a mordant to actually do some eco-dyed fabric, but it didn't come out very well. So what I did with this was print on top of it. And I turned it into some of it into a little book. So you can see the imprint, and I just turned it into a little junk journal that I can use for my personal self. There's a few sort of sketches in there, printed over some paper, so keeping in line with the text as well. Again, more text there. Left that in the music sheets, and that's that. And here's all the looking at the old paper again. And then I looked at doing an idea of a junk journal for tea in the garden. So I did some thumbnail sketches for that. The idea was for like an old vintage style journal. So, and I did some watercolour sketches with flowers as well. More thumbnail sketches, looking at ideas of where to place things, thinking about what I could do if I wanted to do a digital kit, which is what my aim is in the end. So I will definitely go back to this because I love the idea of doing this vintage tea in the garden deck. I then looked at watercolour artists. Jean Haynes was one, looking at her very loose sort of styles and trying to sort of copy that really in a way. Sorry about this, it's the phone going off. Copy that in a way. And I'm looking at different colours of watercolour. I then looked at The Owl and the Pussycat, a children's junk journal. Looked at some of the words and tried to do I did do some thumbnail sketches based on some of the words, but I got a little bit bored of that because I don't really want to do anything to do with children at the moment. I want to go down the road of doing nature stuff, which is for adults, okay? But I did finish it. I looked at Edward Lear as well. And then I did some more watercolours, watercolour flowers, when it was in its prime and when it was dying, just to really see how the watercolour works and looking at mixing my own colours rather than using them straight out the pot so that they're not so bright. They look nicer. More sketches for doing a sunflower journal. That was an idea there. Then I looked at Dean Krauser. I love the way he captures the light and he leaves little white areas. So I copied his just to have a go at seeing if I could do that, because that was the one I did initially, and I thought, well, there's no depth to it, it's flat. So if I try and catch depth, and he's done that by putting the light next to the dark, so really good exercise for me. And then I thought, right, thinking about my own journal, I started to think about it, and I made a little rhyme up, a little story up that I read to you last time about the lady who goes outside sits by a window and never notices nature, and she goes for a walk and she sees a bird. And then I thought, well, I want to do a window. I wanted to create a window first because the idea was of her looking out the window. It didn't come out very well. It was just looking at ideas. Did a few thumbnail sketches here and looking at Linda Israel has done some stuff. She's a journaler that's done that. And then I was thinking about topography when I was looking when I was actually looking at the idea of when I did the story, because I typed it up on an old typewriter. I wanted it to have an old-fashioned look to it. So because I've got an old typewriter, I typed it up on that. And then I got fed up with that and needed a break from everything and thought, look at something completely different I haven't looked at. So I did different types of books and e-zine. Then I looked at magazines, different types of magazines. And then I went over and I produced my own cover for a magazine out of other magazines. So I collaged it, started thinking about collage. And it was basically about seeing things from a child's perspective, because that's how I'd always painted in the past. And I felt as though I was losing it. And I used one of my own images, Three Little Birds. The play on that is the song Everything's Gonna Be All Right by Bob Marley. So that it was a kind of way of helping me at the time, because I was feeling quite stressed. I really enjoyed that. So I started looking at collage, and these artists here, I won't say too much about them, and I thought I'm going to have a go. So I had a go at doing ones related to the robin that the girl sees in the woods, and it's sat in the trees, and that's what I did. And I scanned that in, and I made it into a little tag spot, which I've got in my book, I believe. But it's scanned in anyway, so it was just really, I can't use it to sell it or anything, for the simple reason that I kind of copied this one too. It's a little bit too close to that one, I think, but it was very good, and certainly something I will come back to at a later date. Also, it'll help me doing sort of mixed media stuff too. Watercolours, just practicing how they run. Then I looked at flowers, different artists, and I was comparing different styles, oils to acrylics, which is the more modern style. This is a softer sort of more botanical type thing, and this is a much softer because they use more water. So I did that. And then I was looking at robins, because robin is a theme throughout the book and very important to me anyway. And I was looking at, this is one I did a couple of years ago, and this is another one I did a couple of years ago, and I was comparing them to what others had done and how perhaps I could improve on my own, maybe add a little bit more depth and a little bit more interest with the colour. Because although I love the cute face, because mine are quite sort of cute and naive, I could do a bit better than that. So, and then I did some more sketching, watercolour sketches. I really enjoyed doing the watercolours. I really did. Some more watercolour sketches with a little saying there that goes with robin, so it's more illustrating text really. And then my mum wrote this little poem. A little robin redbreast sat on a tree branch, lifted his head and sang a beautiful song. I won't read the rest of it, but I basically did some illustrations for it and some thumbnail sketches. I'd quite like to go back to do some more of those, but I have used that in my journal. Did some collaging, made pages for a book, which most of them I've used in my journal, used text, used old bits of material, used foraged material, just building up. Basically, this was about looking at a focal point and looking at the different elements of how to get the focal point and bring the viewer's eye into that focal point, but still keep the eye going around the picture and keep it interesting. So, and then I just looked at some other different ways of playing with watercolour and pen, something that's quite modern, maybe something that's slightly sort of older style, just playing really, looking at different artists, a couple of different artists here. And then I made my own stamp. I made another stamp which I put somewhere, can't find it, but it's around, and I actually use this within my journal. I wanted it to have a focal point up here, and I left some blank bits because I really like these sort of lines that are left. I think that these, they add some interest. So that's the stamp bit. And then on the back, I was looking at stamping things from nature and from food, which was quite interesting. I've got some nice patterns that I can go back to at a later date. And I'm rushing as much as I can because I don't know if my 10 minutes is up or not. And then I started looking at junk journals. So I wrote a bit about what a junk journal is, the difference between a junk journal and a normal journal. I looked at Jibid Neri because she is very much into nature stuff. I did some printing on fabric because I wanted to do this for the cover. I painted over the fabric, then printed on it, and then I did some on card, and I produced a set which I sent you a video for of these. I've sold 4 of them. They've sold. One I gifted, four I sold, and one I've still got, and the other one hasn't finished being made yet. Really loved that. I'm definitely going to come back to this. I use sari silk down the spine because it helps strengthen it basically, because it is card. It's quite thick card, but it's still card, and when you bend it, it can get thinner and it be destroyed. And then I looked at Nick the Booksmith, And I did one of her online courses actually about how to make material like this to make it look painted and old fabric stained. But I did my own thing with it, which was to take some of the idea from Jibid Neri's nature theme, or what I'd done here, and put it onto material. That was great. I looked at all these 5, 6 different artists here and the differences between them. This is the Paper Outpost. She really plays. She makes massive gaiters and big journals with loads and loads. She stuffs them full and they're fantastic, you know. And then this lady here, Yvonne White Preston, very vintage, very sort of minimalist in many ways. And then Linda Matthews uses a lot of material. Linda Israel, very modern, as you can see, quite a modern sort of vibrant feel. She doesn't use coffee stain stuff. And then something happened when I went to put my journal together and the bloody thing went completely wrong. Sorry about the language. I was so annoyed about this because I'd spent ages making it. But I thought, how can I get round it? I know. I'll get one of my old books that I've got, Reader's Digest books. I basically I wanted to do a hidden spine because they do give more strength to the actual spine, but I didn't have time. So I just did a normal 3 pamphlet stitch with 3 signatures, and this is my book.